sticking slightly on, or geographically speaking, to the Queen Elisabeth Chapel, you studied there several years ago with the legendary Gary Hoffman at the Queen Elisabeth Chapel, and to this day, I think his recording on YouTube of the Brook Kol Nidre, where I believe he performed that at Indiana with the Indiana Orchestra for Starker's 75th birthday. But anyways, I believe that recording
legendary.
is like, probably the best Kol Nidre on YouTube of all time, really. So can you share with us a little bit about your work with Mr. Hoffman and the musical things that you've gained and how your musical outlook has changed since working with him?
So I'm eternally grateful for my time that I had with him in Belgium. And I don't want this to sound as if I'm taking anything away from how amazing he is, because I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
I think he is a type of musician and person who inspires. But we have to put it into the context where I was. Was I ready to be inspired? Right? I was in a different place, different culture again, different language, all those things. So it was overwhelming at times. And I had a lot of information that I had gotten from studying here with Mr. Wiley, Mr. Cole, and also at Juilliard with Mr. Krosnick. And there I had the physical and mental space because it's in a very lovely, outside the city, how do I say, sort of middle of nowhere, but that doesn't sound, it's charming and quaint, let's say. You're surrounded by nature. There's actually physical space to stare out in the open and feel the earth and feel the wind, notice the leaves. A little different from city life, right? And so being in a very different environment and meeting him at that point in my life, I think that's why it was so amazing, right? Because you can work with amazing people. It doesn't necessarily mean that's always going to have the same effect on people. So I think we always need to look at where we are and if we are ready ourselves to soak up that amazingness. But because he is just such a very generous musician and a person, he helped me believe in myself. He helped me find how to listen and keep believing in myself and how to quiet the outside to listen to yourself and to work on that connection mindfully. And I think that was a necessary step for me because I had so much information that I had from studying at Curtis and at Juilliard, all the just experiences in chamber music, but then I hadn't had the time to find what that all means to me and how it relates to me, right? So I was trying to do the things because I was told, because I think it's the right thing to do.
Right.
But if you don't find why it might be important to you and make that personal interpretation and internalize it, you're scratching the surface level of, oh, I'm doing this because it's right or because someone told me.
Right.
But it can't be as direct if it's just on that level. And he's really the person who helped me focus my energies on that. And again, then if I would go off, if I start listening to the outside voice, he would, center me again. And to think of music as not only music, but how it relates to life.
Yeah.
And noticing connections.
Yeah.
And appreciating duality of life.
Yeah.
Like in music, there's music and silence, and that's all part of music.
Right.
There's light and darkness. That's why we understand light because there is darkness, right? And then there's shadow. There's the in between also. It's not black and white. So, and being inspired from different art and just always looking for that connection. And I think once I started thinking more in noticing things around me and finding inspiration, then that's, I feel, how my growth really, I think it's a place that I blossomed. But it's the combination of Gary Hoffman, being in Belgium, and being at that time of my life.
Yeah, and speaking more to that, I mean, because of you're in a more mature state in life, I would say, compared to your earlier days at Curtis and Juilliard, I would assume, or I would guess that he wasn't really just a cello teacher, but in a way he was probably a life coach in many ways. Yeah. And I'm curious because by that point when you were at the Chapel, you were already starting to get concerts and had, I'm sure, many projects in the area or in Europe in general. So how did this program work? Were you getting lessons weekly with him, or was it just kind of like whenever you both had time and were in the same area?
Right. Great question. I think a lot of people have this it's sort of a mystical place that people have heard about. Oh, it's the place where the competition takes place. But what do you actually do? Right. What does your life look like? It's quite simple. So it's a building in a beautiful environment. And you can be based there. There is a living, there is a room where you can have a bed and place to stay. It's not just a music center. Sure. If you choose to stay, then you do have access to grand pianos in every single room. So I was moving from the States to Europe, which was a big decision, life decision for me. But there are many artists in residence, that's the title. Many artists in residence who are based in Paris, for instance, and they will travel for days or for a week for a project or to work with a specific person. Gary does not come, or Mr. Hoffman does not come every week.
Sure.
It turns out to be about twice a month.
Okay.
And you have the full schedule a year in advance.
Okay.
Or maybe not a year, but enough in advance. No, I wouldn't say a year. Sorry, wrong information. I want to say maybe a few months.
Okay.
In advance. And so you sort of know, am I going to make sure that I'm there for all those dates? And are the concerts secondary, or are there concerts that I really must accept, even if I miss the opportunity? So it's your call in that sense. Sure. Again, I think for me it was a great balance because I could prioritize the dates where I would have the opportunity to work with him, and then if I didn't, then I would travel and accept the concerts, do my project, but because of that place, it's soundproofed really well. So I was jet lagged a lot and I could practice any time of the day without bothering anyone. And it's almost a retreat-like environment where there's nothing else and it's music and you dive into it, you live in it, you breathe it, soak yourself up, concentrate, music. Yeah. and then you leave and there's life. I think the only danger is if you don't have that balance, then you could almost get lost in that wilderness.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a great balance.